Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to introduce Representative Becca Balint, a Democrat representing the entire state of Vermont, the first woman and first openly LGBTQ person to represent her home state of Vermont in Congress, serves on the House Judiciary and the House Budget Committee. Representative Balint, nice to see you, my friend. How's everything?
I'm Things are good. I'm great. I'm excited. I'm fired up.
You're fired up because there was a call last night, white dudes for Harris.
Yes.
Everyone has got a phone call for Harris and they're throwing money at
Yes.
her. It's crazy. So you're excited, but just before we started, you said you were excited. So what's your reaction to now? It's a week and a day into Vice President Harris being the presumptive nominee.
I mean, that's what's so extraordinary, Dean. It's only been a little over a week. And, I was doing an event this weekend with, a campaign event in Vermont on Saturday. And what
Mhm.
did people want to talk about? They wanted to talk about the excitement, the hope that they're feeling right now. And the piece that I think is being lost on some pundits who are like, oh, it's a honeymoon. Oh, don't get so excited. We have work to do. Don't you think we understand the assignment? We
Right.
understand the assignment and the pent-up demand for, a candidate who is going to speak to this moment that we're in. And I think it's Kamala Harris. And so, of course, you and I were talking before, historic fundraising, but it's not just the fundraising, though the fundraising, again,
Hmm.
is extraordinary. It is the number of regular people who are showing up on these organizing calls. I was on a call last night for Women for Harris. It was 250,000 people
What?
on the call. Yeah,
Wow. How do you have a Zoom
women,
plan like that? Who gets a Zoom
right?
plan to get that many
And
people?
so, and
Wow.
simultaneously, the white dude's call was happening. And, it is, people want to have faith in our, our democracy, our government. And you've said it, I've said it, we haven't felt this way in a really long time. And be able to sustain it for 100 days. We can do anything for 100 days. Give me a break. Of course we
Right.
can run through the
Sure.
state bonds. Of course we can, and we're going to.
It's very good. I very specifically have to have a call of half Sicilian, half Palestinians who are Muslim from New Jersey, raised in a multicultural, multi-religious home call. That's my call. It'll be me and my
Yeah.
sister and maybe a couple other people. I'll see what else I can get. Everyone's gonna have their own call now. It's kind of remarkable, the wave of energy and excitement, because a little over a week ago, many people who were calling the show and myself, we were a little down
Yeah.
and it was the polling was slipping away. It was clear what was happening.
Yes.
I said on my show, I said it on MSNBC the day before President Biden dropped out, and I was not calling for President Biden to drop out. I was just saying the trajectory we're on is a loser. That's all I can
Exactly.
assure you. And if
Right.
we remain Biden versus Biden, and that's what the media turned it into. It wasn't even Trump, it was Biden versus Biden. Said, you're going to lose. We got to get out of this frame.
Yeah.
However, that we have to do that, we got to do that. And
Yeah.
I never called for President Biden to drop out. He was the nominee. He won the delegates, and that was the way it was going to be. But then when he made that choice, there was this little sense of purgatory in a way, like what's going to happen? Where are we going to go? And
Yes.
then
Yes.
there were beyond my expectations, beyond what I could
Absolutely.
have written out. Remarkable.
Exactly. And I don't want to pass over the truly incredible thing that the president did, right? This is a man who dedicated his whole life to public service for the country. And what a stark contrast of somebody making an excruciatingly difficult decision to step away from leading the free world, right?
Mhm.
And it's such in stark contrast to somebody who is only, I'm of course referring to the former president, in it for himself, right? He really is, he's a grifter in every possible way. And so, as you said, like it did take off immediately at a life of its own. And I think that what people are tapping into is that this moment is really a movement. It's a movement that we've desperately wanted. We've wanted a cogent argument that we could make, not just against Trump, but in favor of moving
Mhm.
forward, right? It's definitely a forward-looking campaign that she's running. And of course, we're excited to find out about the VP. But I don't want to forget to mention something that has been frustrating me, is the the pundits and the naysayers who will say, you know, we're not a country that's ready to elect a woman or a Black woman. And I just have to say, can we please not parrot these voices, these cynical voices that say we're only as good as the most sexist, racist, and homophobic people in our nation? We're not. We are able to do much, much better, but we have to plant the intention, manifest it through hard work every single day. And you showing up as a pundit on TV, a Democratic pundit saying, I don't know. It's like, why don't you stop being a pundit for a few minutes and get on one of these organizing calls? Like, if you're wringing your hands about the democracy falling apart, then let's do some work. Let's do it. Let's do it together.
I watch people on TV say things that don't even make sense anymore.
Yes.
I watched an anchor last night who I actually like, talking about, you know, that we're saying that Trump's a threat to democracy, but are we being hyperbolic by saying that? I'm like, are you out of your mind? The guy attempted a coup. He incited a terrorist attack.
Yes.
If it wasn't for that, then maybe it would be a little over the top. Okay. We live in a world where people don't remember. We were in a post 9/11 world. We're in a post January 6th world. And the guy who gave us January 6th is the Republican nominee. And he's defending them and celebrating the terrorists as warriors. He calls them warriors now. Those are people who are fighting, his fighters. I can't believe where we are. But I think we're so much in a better place, because I couldn't believe a few weeks ago. I'm like, I can't believe where we are as a nation. I will say this. The other thing is Vice President Harris her tone in going after Trump is much harsher than President Biden, because President Biden comes from a different world, different generation. I went through it yesterday, and just today, the statement came out slamming Trump for ducking Donald, and essentially as too scared. They use the word scared and afraid to debate her and pound him. That's not what Biden would have done that. It's a difference in tone too. That is so great. And she has a new ad today that's fearless. So what a contrast.
I saw that.
Fearless,
Yes,
Kamala,
so good.
versus ducking Donald.
Totally.
Fearless is a quality you want in a president.
Yeah. You know, and you have these opportunities to have the press asking better follow-up questions, for God's sakes. You know, when Trump was making the statements a few days ago that, you know, my delicious, my beautiful, my wonderful Christians, you know, show up, you'll never have to vote again. Like, and then his surrogates are out laughing it off. Like, no. Ask the follow-up question, you know, Lindsey Graham, you know, JD Vance. No, let's dive in. What is he saying? Why is he saying it? And if anything, can we please know he is both a congenital liar, and when he says scary stuff, take him at his word, because we've seen it. We've already seen it. As you said, January 6th, it happened. Please.
And
so the whataboutism is driving me crazy.
Yeah, and the whole thing, Christians go vote. Then he did a little aside for Jews. Yeah, and Jews, you could vote. No mention of Muslims.
No. Because Dean, I'm sorry. I don't know if you got the memo. You're not a real American.
We don't. And there was a chance. There were people in my community who were so upset with Biden's policy in Gaza that some were actually going to vote for Trump. Now I can see that temperature's come way down.
Yes.
And I just saw a poll by Arab American Institute, or the Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee, where now Biden support before was 7%. Now with Harris, it's close to 30%, and a big chunk are undecided. And others, almost no one's with Trump now, which is great. And Jill Stein is the big competitor, because she's out there talking about Palestine all the time. Now, if you live in a not a swing state, you can vote for Jill Stein. If you live in a swing state, we got to come out. We got to win this. It's not just for my communities, for all of our communities to live under this monster. I mean, it is.
No, it's absolutely true. And Dean, one of the things that I said to my, you know, my constituents, my Vermonters, we are in a, you know, quote unquote safe blue state. The pitch that I made to them on Saturday night was, look, you have to do more than you've done in the past as it relates to a national campaign. I need you to phone bank into these battleground states. If you're an attorney, I need you, if you can get the time off, to go to a battleground state and be a poll watcher. I need you to stretch yourself beyond what is possible, because you're right. Like, we're going to deliver Vermont for Kamala Harris. It's just a matter of what the margin's going to be, right? I'm hoping that it will be as strong as we came out for Biden. But, you know, we have got to do all of the outreach to the folks we know in Michigan, to the folks that we know in Pennsylvania and now in Georgia and North Carolina and Arizona. And we have to have individually more skin in the game, even those of us in those blue states. Please, this is my pitch that I'm making, that, it is going to take individual person-to-person conversations to get people more comfortable with a candidate they don't know as much about, though
Sure.
we do know that she actually believes in the Constitution and the rule of law. So that's two good things that you can you can make the first pitch on, and certainly all of the investments that she was part of making with Biden, like in tremendous investments in our country. Hey, how about we bet on our country and not against it? How about that?
I agree. I'm talking about Representative Becca Balint. I had Stephen Levitsky on a few weeks ago. He's a professor at Harvard who co-wrote How Democracies Die. And he had a new book too about sort of tyranny of the minority. But he said this election, and this before, when Biden was still the nominee, was the question of a multicultural democracy versus authoritarianism. That's really what the ballot's about.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's actually perfect. Then you have Vice President Harris as the physical embodiment of multiculturalism leading the Democratic charge. So you couldn't get more of a stark contrast. It really is a multicultural democracy with Vice President Harris as the living manifestation, or a white supremacist monster on the other side who doesn't believe in democracy, who's an anti-democracy activist. And so these are the stakes, America. It's really simple. There's no gray anymore. This is black and white. This is like an old time Western.
And I was thrilled when her first campaign ad came out and it was centered on freedom. Mm-hmm. I mean, I had a reporter ask me a couple days before, what did I hope to hear from the Harris campaign? And I said, that was my first thing out of my mouth. I want them to talk about freedom, because this is something that, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, or somebody who has unplugged from politics, you understand that you do not want the government meddling in your family, in your school, in your bedroom, in your doctor's office, like that. Those are stakes to lay out. And of course, we haven't even talked about the horrible vice presidential pick on the Republican side. I mean, he's losing Donald Trump is losing his cool over that one.
What can you say about JD Vance that everyone else hasn't said? I mean, that's the thing about Vance. So let's talk about, though, touching on continue what you're saying. Just yesterday in Iowa, the new abortion ban, it's essentially a total abortion ban, except for some limited exceptions, which you can't even believe in because they're going to be hard to fulfill, went into effect yesterday. And is there any doubt if Trump wins, the Republicans, the House and Senate, they pass a very similar national abortion ban?
Look, he's beholden to these extremists, right? And so the people, sometimes I come across them when I'm out, campaigning. They say, well, Trump doesn't support a national abortion ban. I'm like, okay, there is one person who is responsible for orchestrating what happened at the Supreme Court, and that is Donald Trump. And he was delighted that he overturned Roe v. Wade. And anything that he says right now about not believing in a total abortion ban, it's not believable based on who he surrounds himself with, right? And when we've talked about it briefly, but look, dive into Project 2025. Those folks on the call that I'm sure you're hearing it because a lot of people are talking about it, but it really is laying explicit plans, not just for controlling access to abortion, but also depriving families of access to contraception and in making decisions that are right for their families. And it's just, I know a lot of people have been saying, the use of the word weird or strange when talking about this. What I would say is, for me, it's creepy. It's uncomfortable when you've got so many people focused on women's genitals. It's creepy. And I think, it goes to the top of the ticket. You have a man who's a serial philanderer who has said creepy things about young women and girls for years. And what I would like to do is really, have somebody out there who's better equipped than I am, put all those things together and say, is this the man that you want speaking to America about women's sexuality, reproductive health, healthcare, period, right? I as a as a mom of a teenage boy and a teenage girl, it is so frightening to me when I hear the way that he talks about these things. And so I have no doubt in my mind that he will do whatever his extremist base wants because he is completely beholden to them.
Absolutely. And there's no doubt that his base is all he cares about. If it makes him happy, he will do it. And that's what we're doing. And you mentioned Project 2025. In that, one of the things is to use the Comstock Act. There's an old law to ban abortion drugs from being shipped to people in the mail.
Yeah.
And there's no part of people's lives Project 2025 doesn't want to touch on, but a lot of it has to do with abortion, having just the FDA, have loyalists appointed the FDA to overturn the approval of mifepristone and the abortion drugs. They're not hiding it. It's in writing. It's like a horrible novel.
Yes, it's a 900-page blueprint for how they're going to get rid of all nonpartisan civil servants, thousands and thousands and thousands of them across government, and make sure that those seats are filled with Trump loyalists and extreme MAGA, extreme right-wing conservatives who are out of step with what Americans want. And you talked about Comstock. I introduced the Stop Comstock Act in the House. Tina Smith had the companion bill in the Senate. We got a lot of partners with us on that bill. And, one of the ways I want people to think about it too, yes, it is about trying to stop the shipment of, they're trying to use it to stop the shipment of mifepristone, which is a medically safe way for women in any zip code to be able to attain access to abortion. But they also, based on how they're talking about, they also want to restrict the shipping of anything even associated with a doctor's practice related to abortion. Basically anything, any material, any drug that could be used within an office, a doctor's office, to perform an abortion or to give a full spectrum of healthcare to women. That's what they want to ban, the shipping and the mailing of that. This is a set of laws that date back to the 1800s. So when we say they're trying to take us back, like it's not just a metaphor, right? It is true that that's what they're trying to do.
And in Vice President Harris' new ad today, and her first ad last week, and her speeches last week, we're not going back.
No.
Is the theme here. And that's the fight. It's a fight between going back to the same guy who was in the White House before and his backwards ideas. And I also want to touch on Project 2025 as it impacts the LGBTQ plus community, because there's a lot in there about really rolling back rights and protections for your community to really, again, take us backwards before the modern era, to be honest.
Yeah, it wants to take away essentially all protections for my community. And it wants to have a very strict definition of what family looks like. They want to restore a very, traditional, and I put that in quotes, view of what a family is and what a legitimate family structure is. It is a way of alienating millions and millions of Americans by a very strict biblically based, definition of family. And so that's the other piece I want people to understand. We have become we're moving towards being a secular nation in a big way, right? And lots of people identify as Christians or Jews or Muslims. Many people are not necessarily attending a mosque or synagogue or church every week, right? What we know about them, this wide swath of Americans, is they do not want whoever is in office dictating for them what they should believe religiously, politically. And it is essentially, as we just talked about, it comes back to freedom. Your definition of family, of sexuality, of gender, of rights, essentially, and patriotism is so narrow. It is so exclusive, and it has to come back to freedom every time for us. And this is where I think we in the past, as Democrats, we've been shy about embracing freedom, embracing the flag, embracing what it means to be, someone who loves country. And I am all in for
Mhm.
bringing that back. And as my team knows, I've been working on an op-ed to that effect. And it is important for us all to understand that fighting for freedom, being a patriot means making room to make us all better. That's what we're talking about. It's not like this stagnant snapshot of America. We are ever evolving, and it's exciting. It's exciting. I want to be part of that.
It is exciting. And our country's always moved. It's been dynamic from day one.
Yes.
And there's always a push and pull. People want to go backwards and other people want to go forward. And anti-immigrant sentiment in the past and racist sentiment
Yeah.
and the push and pull. Last two things. One is last week, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke
Yeah.
before Congress. I saw that you didn't attend. You were
Nope.
visiting with family members who have family members who are hostages
Yes.
taken by Hamas. So tell us what your reaction was. I don't know from what you saw of it, but just overall about where we
Yeah.
stand right
Look,
now.
he should never have been invited. He should not be welcomed to the US Congress, right?
Mhm.
He is in the middle of a horrible, devastating war that is not good for his own people and certainly devastating for thousands and thousands of Palestinians. So he should be, from my perspective, using every waking moment,
Mhm.
securing the release of the hostages, bringing about an end to the war, making sure that we have a future of stability in the Middle East. He's doing none of those things. This is all about his own political career. I really believe it is as disgusting as that. And I felt so strongly that we have these voices in the US that say it is rude of you not to go because he's the prime minister of an ally. Well, let me tell you, the Israeli people are not behind Netanyahu. Most recent poll I saw, 75% of Israelis want him to leave. And also a majority hold him responsible for the devastating situation they find themselves in right now. And so, no, I didn't attend. And I don't think we should be celebrating his failed leadership that has brought so much death and destruction to Palestinians and his own people. And he should have resigned. I've said this. He should have resigned on October 8th. Once he figured out what had happened, colossal failure, all the promises that he made about security, he should have done, he should have taken a page from Biden. Show some courage, show some respect, not just for yourself, but for your people. And so, yeah,
he's not.
I wasn't there.
No, I know. And from what I watched, it was awful. And
It
very
was.
last thing, you were just on a congressional trip. You went to Kenya, Tanzania, and also Belgium. I went to Europe for part of it. But it was about, from what I read, it was about democracy, like in Kenya, Tanzania. Like, what can you share about it?
Yeah. We're really, we're looking at the democracy movement within Kenya. It is a country that I feel like we should be investing more actual capital in, but also more political capital. And we were specifically looking at the role of women both in Kenya and Tanzania, both in organizations and within government. It was very inspiring, Dean, very inspiring. And it was led by Whip Catherine Clark, who is terrific. I don't know if you ever have her on your show.
No, we'd like to. She's in, being high in
busy
leadership,
lady.
it's harder to get.
She's a busy lady, but I have so much respect for her. She led a wonderful delegation trip, and it got me thinking about all the really important work that we do in Africa that people don't think about, like all the money that we invest in making sure that people are getting access to vaccinations and medications that they need to reduce, the spread of diseases. That is critically important work, not just for, the health and safety of these people living in places like Tanzania and Kenya, but also it is a way for us to build bridges with these governments. And I think it's really important for us to continue doing that work. We only spend about 1% of our budget on foreign aid, and it's money well spent. It really is. So yeah, I
appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
Well, Representative Balint, it's always great chatting with you, my friend. I look forward to chatting with you probably after probably after in September. We'll be in the heat of the battle then. And I
Yes.
look forward to seeing the DNC and Vice President Harris being introduced to more Americans who don't know her. And this is a great opportunity coming up in a couple of weeks. So Representative Balint, look forward to chatting with you probably next month.